wonder, how much of a challenge was it to do all three roles?
Well, the biggest challenge is getting on stage in your new makeup and wigs and costumes on time. Right now, for me, Olympia is the biggest challenge.
That's surprising because most people think of you as a real colorateur, and I would have said, well, I'm sure Giulietta was the most difficult for you.
Oh, no, Giulietta is actually the easiest role. It's the least satisfactory for anyone, I think, to perform. And maybe it was the least satisfying of the three roles that I performed, but it's Olympia that makes me the most nervous.
Let me ask you, would you prefer to do all three roles? Why did you do all three roles in the first place?
Well, Beverly asked me to. Good enough reason. And also, it's sort of boring. I actually enjoyed doing Olympia and Antonia last year, but doing Olympia by herself is just not interesting to me at all. Frankly, I'd just as soon not do Hoffman anymore.
Right.
I don't think it's an ideal opera for me, any one of the parts.
Right. You only did one performance, and I said to myself, isn't that an awful lot of work for only one performance, June?
Yes, it certainly was. I have a couple more coming up, but in English. And up at Chautauqua this summer, I'll be doing all three roles.
All three roles again.
Yeah.
So as you say, if you do it at all, you'd prefer to do all three roles.
Yeah.
You know, those really are written for three different types of voices, I guess, ideally. Ideally, you should have a real coloratura, a lyric, and a mezzo-soprano.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you there. I really don't think that Giulietta's a mezzo-soprano. I think she's a heavier soprano.
It could be sung that way because I know that it was Schwarzkopf recorded the part of Giulietta. So there are many roles that tradition says are mezzo-soprano that can be sung. The octavian and the composer are usually sung by a mezzo-soprano, but can easily be sung by a dramatic soprano. How would you describe your voice to the audience?
Well, at this point, I suppose I'm a very full lyric with high notes.
So you don't want to call yourself a real colorateur?
No, I don't. I have never called myself a colorateur, as a matter of fact.
I had thought from looking at your repertoire, because it includes a Queen of the Night.
Well, it doesn't anymore. Like most sopranos, I put the Queen of the Night to bed, and to the dismay of several people, but I think I've had enough of that role. I always hated it, and I only enjoyed one production that I did of it.
Well, I don't know any soprano that enjoys singing the Queen of the Night, and it usually is the first role they take out of their repertoire, because there's not really much you can do with it.
No.
And it's not very gratifying. You can't act it. And it's just not satisfying to walk out on stage and belt out the high notes, difficult as it is, and that's it. And if you miss one note, your whole performance is gone.
That's right. That's right. I don't like roles anymore that depend just on high notes, and that's why. I think that's why Olympia makes me very nervous, even though E-flats are certainly within my voice. Fs are shortly probably won't be there, but I don't want to be in the process of singing the Queen of the Night when I lose my Fs.
Well, you know, June, I can see a newspaper review entitled, Yale College Graduate Sings Queen of the Night. And I was amazed to know that you are a graduate of Yale.
Yes.
And I wonder if you would tell the audience a little bit about your background. How did you get to the New York City Opera?
Oh, goodness. Well, that's a tough question, I suppose.
Like how long have you been studying? I mean, did you always plan to be an opera singer? Or
No, not at all. I suppose that's as good a place to start as any. I was a French major at Yale and did not want to be a singer. I had done a lot of singing as a teenager and had actually done my first Rigoletto at 17 and was a finalist in the Met auditions at 17 and then promptly gave up singing. And I started again when I was about 21, studying seriously. And
what made you change your mind again, June?
I had decided that I was not going to shake up the French academic world with my brilliant ideas, and so I'd better go back to doing something that I supposedly was good at doing.
See, I was a little bit amazed when I read that you were one of the finalists with the Metropolitan Opera auditions at the age of 17, because I said, I wondered why she entered, because at 17, was she really ready? Did she think she wanted to start a professional career?
Not at all.
Why did you enter?
I didn't enter is the big thing. It all happened accidentally. I was entered in a competition. It was called the Young Artist Award that took place in Connecticut, where I grew up, and was each year I suppose a $100 scholarship and a performance with a little local symphony was the prize. And the Met auditions were being held at the same time in the same place, and some people were entered in both competitions. And after I sang, the judges of the Met audition asked if I would mind being considered for the Met prize, and all I knew was that it was a $200 prize instead of a $100 prize. So I said, oh, fine, go ahead, whatever you want. So I won the Met prize instead of the Young Artist Award, and then found out I had to go on to another audition. I was very upset and didn't want any part of it. But
So
I
back
did
to
go
French
on.
again.
But I went on to the next audition, and then to the next audition, and to the next audition, and it wasn't really a pleasant experience.
I think auditions are very grueling. I think any kind of competition,
Yes.
even for those who win. I've talked to so many instrumental musicians who have won very prestigious competitions, and very often they've won them with no repertoire. They're launched on a major career without a repertoire.
Yes,
So when I heard that you had entered at 17,
Yes.
I said, I wonder what she had. I
Well,
said, she
I
must
was
have a
hardly-
stage mother.
Well, I was hardly ready for a career at that point, and had I begun a career, I wouldn't be sitting here today, I'm sure.
Well, I'm interested again in your vocal category, and you say that you're a lyric with maybe an easy top, a colored
Yeah.
top, whatever you want to call it. And
Well, most people compare my voice with Sutherland, because it's a good-sized voice, but
it has body to it.
yeah, but with lots of high notes and very easy facility.
Well, which way would you like it to go, June? Do you want to do the coloratura roles with your voice,
Yes.
or would you prefer to do more lyric
No,
spinto roles?
I'm interested right now for the next 5-7 years or more of doing the bel canto roles, which
In a dramatic way, I would presume.
well, whichever way my voice will do them. Things like Lucia, Puritani, Sonambula, and a lot of the Verdi.
See, that's what I meant, because I
They were
think
written for a voice of good size, but with a technique that would allow them to sing the fioritura and high notes here and there. And I think that's the repertoire that's ideal for me at this point. It probably, the way my voice is going now, it's probably going to end up being a spinto or dramatic coloratura. And maybe in another 10 years I'll be singing.
maybe a
Roma.
Tosca.
Well, I don't know about Tosca. I'm not a big fan of Puccini.
I'm sort of glad to hear that, because I think that in recent years, the public has come to revise their thinking about the so-called bird operas, if they're sung that way. Somebody said that if Lily Pons came back today, she would have no public. Because, as you know, when we went to hear Lily Pons, she really wasn't that great an actress, even though she looked to move very well on stage. She saved herself for the arias. I mean, it was not a dramatic interpretation, and the public went to hear Lucia just to hear the mad scene. I think after Callas and Sutherland, people found out that these operas had a dramatic validity to it. And, for example, now I know the Metropolitan Opera does not cast Gilda as a high coloratura. They cast it with a lyric, and they don't allow all the high variants. Now, I know you will be singing Gilda soon, I presume.
Yes, I'm doing it at City Opera in next spring. Yeah.
I don't know whether we want to go as far as the recent example of Montserrat Caballé, who recorded Lucia without any of the high notes. I think Lucia still, the public still expects some dazzling coloratura, but I think it can be sung in a different way.
Oh, absolutely. There's very little fioritura in the role of Lucia, and the highest written note is a high C. So there's no reason why a heavier voice shouldn't sing it if they can get through.
Have you sung Lucia before, June?
Well, I've done it in concert version only down in Venezuela.
No, that's what
So I'm doing my first Lucias this coming fall at the New York City Opera.
Where were you before you came to the New York City Opera? Because your career is very, very young. How much experience did you have, and how did you get your New York City Opera debut?
Well, I started singing opera in 1977. My first professional opera was Barbara of Seville with the Syracuse Opera Company, and that came accidentally. Suzanne Marcy became ill, and I had recently auditioned for the manager of the opera company. He remembered me and called and said, "Can you do Rosina?" And I said, "Oh." He said, "You have 3 days." I said, "All right, you have to take a gamble," and so I did. And so I've been working fairly steadily ever since then.
It's interesting because that's an opera that both mezzo-sopranos and coloratura sing.
Yeah.
Now they usually cast a mezzo, but I must say I like a higher voice in that opera because there's so many men. I think that the higher voice makes, I don't know, and the girl is so young, and there's so many men, so many low voices, that I find if you have a higher soprano as Rosina, I think the opera goes better.
Yeah, I like it that way. I've changed the way I sing it. When I first sang it in 77, I sang it as a very high coloratura. And when I did it this fall out in Los Angeles with City Opera, I changed a lot of things. My voice has changed so much.
Already? It's undergoing changes?
Yes. Yeah, this is the time period when it will change. It'll probably be changing a lot until I'm 32 or 33.
Many years away.
And when I sang it this fall, I now do Rosina's aria in the key of E rather than F, and then I throw in a high E at the end.
You're able to really hear your voice when you're on stage. Some of the singers say they can't. That's why they have to rely on people to tell them.
Well, what I hear and what the public hears
Maybe
are two different things, yeah. And I've learned what I should listen for in order for the public to hear what they should hear.
We are talking to the New York City Opera soprano, June Anderson, and we're going to pause for a moment for a musical interlude, and then we will be back again. We are back again talking to tonight's intermission guest, June Anderson. And June, one of the things that you are doing this season is the role of Cleopatra in Händel's Julius Caesar, and I want to get you, what do you think about this role?
Oh, well, Cleopatra is a very complicated character.
Have you done anything in this style before, the Baroque style? Because it takes a certain style.
Well, not staged. I've done a couple of Händel operas with the Händel Society in Washington, D.C., but other than that, I've not really done any Baroque music. But are you talking about the style of music or the stylization in this particular production?
You have both in this production.
Yeah.
You have a physical style that you must learn, and I think staged Händel requires a certain style. You can't go on stage only having some Puccini and Verdi, all of a sudden find yourself in the world of Händel, because the movements go with the music. The whole thing, I think, requires a requisite style.
Yes, and I noticed when I first started working on Cleopatra that I was bringing 19th century opera style to it, and it's wrong. I really had to clean up my act.
That's what I meant.
Just thinking it has to be much cleaner, and it has to. The form is so rigid. You really do have to stay within.
And the embellishments in the music. What's the big aria that when she comes in again the second time she has to sing the same music? One of her arias, she repeats it with all the embellishments. Is that Piangerella Sortonella?
Well, they all are ABA.
They all, require, this is a different style.
The most outrageous one is the last one, La Tempeste, which is very florid when it comes back.
And that's, now who gives you the style, June? I mean, like if you're approaching Händel for the first time, who gives you the style? Do you get it from your own personal coach, or do you rely on New York City Opera?
Well, there are some very good coaches down there. Mm-hmm. Diane Richardson, who is the head coach on Julius Caesar, is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And Gianna Rolandi, who sang the previous Cleopatras, her voice is very different from mine. Mm-hmm. And so Diane and I worked together and came up with some different embellishments. and change certain things. And I did some of my own embellishments, and I know that Jana did some of hers.
How many times will you be singing this in New York
Once.
City? So this is, again, is something that that really astounds me, that you would be asked to sing all three roles in Hoffman for one performance, to do that amount of work, and to learn an opera like Julius Caesar, which you will not be singing every other night for the rest of your life.
Probably never
it's,
again.
And it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
This is a tremendous amount of work to put into one night's performance, don't you
Yes.
find?
Yes, actually, I think I've probably spent more time working on Cleopatra than maybe any other role I've ever worked on.
The training may be good, and maybe will come out in another performance, but it's still
Yes.
an awful lot of work. I'm curious, these are roles that Beverly sang herself.
Yes.
How does she work with you, or what does she say in working with singers who are singing her roles? Does she make any comments or observations or anything?
Well, the only comment she's made is when I first hesitated about singing the role of Cleopatra, because it is so identified with Beverly, she said, "Oh, but your voice is so much different. It's so much larger and much more like Sutherland, and you know, so you approach it in your own way." And I've done that.
In other words, she doesn't try to force her interpretation on you.
No, well, of course we're going into an opera that was done with her, and
Right.
and so many of the operas that I will be performing at City Opera were her operas, and so I'm sort of being forced into a bit of a mold.
Mm-hmm.
But
I know I asked Jana the same question, and she said pretty much what you said, that Beverly didn't try to force her interpretation.
No.
But she said one thing Beverly did that was helpful was to tell her the danger spots in the opera. And there are always danger spots that the audience is not aware of, but the singer knows. One thing I have learned in talking to singers, what is difficult for one singer is not difficult for somebody else.
Absolutely.
For example, Henry Price was here this afternoon, and he was saying that right now he feels like Rigoletto is one of his very best parts. On the other hand, Domingo said recently, right now Rigoletto is almost impossible for him to sing because he's been singing Otello and his voice is going in a different way. So what is easy for June Anderson might be harder for somebody else singing the same part.
that's right.
Because I think every singer uses their assets. One of the things that New York City Opera is doing, and I understand they're going to be doing more of it, is operetta. And I wonder if, June, do you feel that operetta belongs in the Opera House, and will you be doing any of them?
No, I won't be doing any of them, but
You could easily do the Student Prince, if you wanted to.
yeah, I'm not really interested in that part. My main interest is really bel canto opera. I have a very narrow field of vision. That's about all I want to perform.
When you say bel canto, June, does that mean that you're not interested in singing Traviata?
Oh, that's bel canto.
No, I think Traviata is after the bel canto era.
Oh, I consider Verdi as part of bel canto.
Early Verdi, maybe. Because the roles are written very differently. Early Verdi relies a great deal on soprano with a great deal of flexibility. I'm not going to say coloratura, but with a great deal. I Lombardi, Attila, I mean, and some of them written sort of wildly.
Yes.
But is Traviata a role that you know?
Oh, yes. Yes, I think that's probably one of the best things I've ever done. Actually, I did my first Traviatas this fall in Duluth, Minnesota, of all places, and it was a wonderful physical production, gorgeous costumes, and I think it's probably some of the best work I've ever done.
Well, this is a role that you will grow with. It will change. I think that you can grow in a Traviata performance with each one. There's so many facets to bring out, and I hope that we have the opportunity to hear you do this soon in New York. In terms of the future, what else is coming up that we can look forward to, June?
Well, next year at New York City Opera, I Puritani and Lucia, Rigoletto, I Lombardi.
You have a lot of homework to do, don't you?
I certainly do.
Well, those are all wonderful parts.
Yes,
And
I can't ask for anything better than singing nothing but Donizetti, Bellini, and Verdi.
I just hope that you sing more than one performance of each, so that the person can't get to the first performance,
Yes.
there's another one. This is one of the problems with
No
sitting
more
up.
one performance only. No.
Well, this is one of the problems because many of the people I want to see, they only do one or two performances. You may have another commitment that night and you miss it.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that we had a discussion at my opera club about the same question, and everybody felt that if, for example, Hoffman is only being done 3 times, they should keep the same cast and give that cast sufficient rehearsal so that the public benefits and the singer feels they are well prepared.
I'm totally in agreement with you.
I hope Beverly hears this because I know many of her artists have said the same thing. And we will be looking forward to all of these very exciting things, Puritani, Rigoletto, Lombardi. And since you are just basically starting your career in New York, I'm sure you'll be back again. Thank you.
Thank you.